You've probably heard the joke before. Someone forgets where they left their keys, walks into a room and forgets why, or repeats the same story twice, and someone laughs, "You have the memory of a goldfish." For decades, goldfish have been unfairly labeled as one of the most forgetful animals on Earth. According to the popular myth, they can only remember things for about 3 seconds before everything disappears from their minds, forcing them to experience the world as if it's constantly brand new. But is there any truth to that claim? Or have we been repeating one of the biggest animal misconceptions ever created? Today we're diving into the surprising science behind goldfish memory, where the myth came from, and what these tiny fish are actually capable of remembering, right here on History of Simple Things. Interestingly, no one knows exactly where the 3-second memory idea started. It wasn't based on a famous scientific study or a groundbreaking experiment. Instead, it seems to have spread gradually through popular culture. Television shows, cartoons, advertisements, and everyday jokes repeated the claim so often that people simply accepted it as fact. The idea sounded believable. Goldfish have tiny brains after all. Surely a small brain must mean a poor memory, right? Not necessarily. Brain size alone doesn't determine intelligence or memory. Birds, for example, have relatively small brains compared to mammals, yet many species can solve puzzles, recognize human faces, and even use tools. What matters is how the brain is organized and what it has evolved to do. Goldfish may not solve math equations, but they possess far more mental ability than most people give them credit for. Researchers have spent decades studying fish behavior, and the results paint a completely different picture. In laboratory experiments, goldfish have been trained to swim through mazes, push levers, recognize colored signals, and even associate certain sounds with feeding time. What's remarkable isn't just that they can learn these tasks, it's that they can remember them long after the training ends. Some studies have found that goldfish retain learned behaviors for weeks or even months. Once they understand that a particular cue leads to food, they often continue responding correctly without needing constant retraining. That alone completely contradicts the idea of a 3-second memory. If goldfish forgot everything every few seconds, learning would be impossible. Every feeding would feel like the first one, every obstacle would be new, and every lesson would immediately disappear. Clearly, that's not how their brains work. Many goldfish owners notice something interesting after spending enough time with their pets. The fish often become noticeably more active when their usual caregiver approaches the tank. They may swim toward the glass, follow movements around the room, or gather near the surface before feeding time. Some people assume they're simply reacting to any movement, but experiments suggest there's more happening. Goldfish can learn to recognize specific people, especially those who consistently feed them. They use visual cues, movement patterns, and repeated experiences to distinguish familiar individuals from strangers. In other words, your goldfish isn't necessarily greeting everyone equally. It may actually know it's you. Goldfish are also surprisingly good at learning daily schedules. If they're fed every morning around the same time, many begin anticipating the meal. They may become active shortly beforehand, swimming near the surface or gathering where food usually appears. This isn't random behavior. It's a learned routine based on memory. They remember that certain events happen at predictable times or after certain cues, whether it's lights turning on, footsteps approaching the tank, or the opening of a food container, goldfish can connect those signals with what comes next. That's a basic form of learning shared by many animals, including dogs, birds, and even humans. From an evolutionary standpoint, memory is incredibly valuable. Wild goldfish and their close relatives don't live in tiny glass bowls. They inhabit ponds, lakes, and slow-moving rivers filled with predators, food sources, changing seasons, and complex environments. To survive, they need to remember where food is abundant, recognize dangerous areas, avoid predators, and navigate their surroundings. A fish that forgot everything every 3 seconds wouldn't last very long in nature. Memory allows animals to make better decisions based on past experiences. It's one of the reasons learning evolved across so many different species. Goldfish are no exception. Researchers have trained them to navigate simple obstacles, discriminate between different shapes and colors, and even perform tasks that require choosing one option over another to receive food. Some experiments have gone a step further, teaching goldfish to respond to sounds or lights before a reward appears. These behaviors require more than instinct. They involve learning, remembering, and adapting based on previous experiences. That's a far cry from the absent-minded image we've been taught to believe. So if scientists have known this for years, why do so many people still believe the myth? Part of the answer is that simple ideas spread easily. The goldfish has a 3-second memory, is short, funny, and easy to repeat. It became a cultural cliché long before most people had access to scientific research. Another reason is that fish are often underestimated. Unlike dogs or cats, fish don't bark, purr, wag their tails, or display obvious facial expressions. Because their behavior seems quieter, it's easy to assume they're not thinking very much. But appearances can be misleading. As scientists continue studying fish cognition, they're discovering that many species can recognize individuals, communicate, cooperate, and even experience forms of social learning that were once thought impossible. Goldfish are simply one example of how much we still have to learn about animal intelligence. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.